I've got a flow that I have built, which is called Calc Pricing, and it's an auto launch flow, and it looks pretty complex. This is a bit more complex than what I would normally build as a flow, because I've really detailed it out to show you how I've calculated the levies. So basically, I'm getting the details from the property. Has it got a levy rate on the account record or the local government area record? I'm getting the levy for each of the states, and imagine that would get much more complex if it was a multiple states. So therefore, you'd probably do that as a subflow or even an invocable method in Apex to get that information from the custom metadata types. And then if I determine which state it is and assign the levy rate that we're going to be using based on the state. I work out, has it got the local government levy, and I calculate the local government levy, and then I calculate the state levy, and then I've got, does it have a national levy? If so, I calculate the national levy, and in the very end, update the property record with all of the details, and I also update this update pricing field to false, because that's key as to how this process works, is that we trigger this process working by changing this update pricing field to true. Now, so this is a flow, and it's an auto launch flow, so it needs to be launched by something. And this is just a process builder that is just a very simple criteria that says if this update pricing checkbox field is true and changed, then we're going to call the subflow calc pricing and pass in the record ID. Okay, so that's very simple. Now I thought with the new features in Spring 20, we might be able to use the new feature of the before update flow triggers and bypass the process builder. Because I don't know about you, but I don't particularly like process builder that much. And unfortunately we can't, because we can't call another flow. So this is a before update flow, and you can see the elements there. There's not that many elements. All we can do is assign values, and when that value is saved, then the values in the assignment are going to be the new values. We can get records, we can get sort of look up information from custom metadata types or anything like that, and we can assign values. That's all we can do. We can't call a subflow. But if you think about it, this is a before trigger, in inverted commas trigger, and so it doesn't make sense that a before trigger would then be able to call a flow which does all sorts of other things you can't control in a before context. So that's why we will stick with process builder after the record is updated, and if the value of update pricing is true, then we're going to call this calc pricing flow, which is an auto launch flow. But what we can do is that we can save our whole flow rather than calling a subflow. We can save our whole flow as a new flow and have the start node say what launches the flow is new or updated records. The flow makes fast field updates, and we can say here a record is created or updated, and it's the property record. Now, interesting, this is the first time we've looked at this being a Spring 20 feature, so you notice this is really geared up for one flow only per object, because there's no criteria on this. We can't set any criteria, so the idea is that I think they want you to do is only one flow per object, which is what they've been trying to do with Process Builder, but it was never really sorted from the very beginning, and there was just too much legacy with a lot of different process builders all firing off. So I think this is from the start. As we use this new feature, we will get into this habit of using this one flow for each object. So I've moved this into the flow, and you can see that there's one difference. Instead of the update record as the final outcome, we're doing the assign record. So I've got all of my formulas that I've calculated all the way through. I've got my pricing updated field is been assigned to the current date time. I've got my levy summary being assigned by formula, total levy, and I've got my update pricing field being assigned to false. So all of these values will save before the record is saved to the database and any other triggers and code runs. Now, so I've hit save on that, but I get an error. And I think this is just a limitation of this new feature. So one of the other great new features in Spring 20 is that you have been able to do this before, and I've never really worked out how to do it, where I can, instead of doing a lookup for the account record to get the fire levy for the local government related record on the property, I can just go up my chain of related records and do the property, go to the local government, and then get the fire levy from there. And in Spring 20, there's a great new feature to be able to help you do this, looking up the chain. But it looks like this is not possible on these before trigger values. So here, if we go get property, record get property, and go to our, so we can't even get, oh, that's interesting. Is that because, okay, get property, okay, so we've got our field LGA there. So this is also a new feature here where we can automatically store all the fields. We don't have to stipulate out every single field, but I have got the LGA field here. But if I go to my assignment to set that value, well, I'm trying to go to the LGA and then the fire levy, which is the other new feature. And I want to do get records, get property. So I want to do get property. Property from get property, okay, and I can't go to the local government area there. All I can get is a couple of different fields there. So I had to change my whole flow and do an extra lookup from the account record, look up the ID where it's the property's LGA, and then return just the fire levy field. Okay, and then I can use that value in my assignment. So that's a bit disappointing that this brand new feature is not available in this brand new feature. And I think that would really help if that was a feature. Maybe next release, I don't know, maybe it will never come. So therefore, I've got now this new way of doing before triggers on records in Spring 20. So I've activated that. Now to make that actually happen, I will have to go back to my process builder and deactivate that process builder. So again, this is the scenario we're going to be going through in the next release, of hopefully clearing out all these process builders that we don't like and making before flow triggers, where we will re-evaluate all of our flows to make sure that we've rebuilt them in the nice way and build them all into one flow with all decisions, and do nice layouts in our flows and make everything nice, and things will work nicely. So let's just make sure that works. So again, we're going to change our base price to $9.50, and we're going to do update pricing. So again, all of this is going to happen no matter, it doesn't matter. Okay, so we don't even have to do update pricing. All of this will happen based on anything, any change to the record. Interesting. Let's see. Okay. Of course we get an error. So let me pause and I'll fix that up. Now this is interesting. It looks like you can't debug before update flows. Now that would sort of make sense. but difficult when you're getting a bizarre error that you don't know. At the moment, it's just returning me a GAC number and not returning me actually a very real error. So I'm going to turn on debug log and see if I can get some extra information from a regular debug log rather than the flow debug. And our debug log is a little bit useless. So I'm going to just have a quick look at my flow and re-evaluate everything. Because this flow has now been a prior to winter 20 flow, a winter 20 flow, and now a spring 20 flow, it's got some extra variables in here that sort of may be not used anymore. And I probably need to just go back and have a look at all the variables and just make sure everything's been set correctly. And I'll come back in a second after that's been done. And I think I know where I went wrong. So here I'm trying to pass in the record ID, whereas with the new before triggers, it's got this dollar record. So we just do record property ID and ID. And I'm not sure if that would be even necessary, but we'll try this. So now that record ID variable can be deleted. So that's what I'm trying to do, is go through all of these resources to make sure they're all in use now. So let me just save that as a new version, and we'll quickly try and save that. We'll live dangerously. We'll try it out. I like to do this sort of stuff. And so we'll come back to our thing and we'll update our pricing to 950 and save that. And it's updated to 950. It's updated our date, but it hasn't updated our asking price. So let's just try changing that again. Discount. Okay, so that updated. So it must be just something that I haven't done my formulas quite correct. But that is actually really good. I'm very pleased with that. It's going to take a little bit of work so you don't even need that update pricing. I still like that update pricing. It's a simple thing to be able to just do that one Boolean update pricing. Yes, and that's 952. That's now been updated. I like the idea of the Boolean too, but this is now the before update triggers on the flows is going to update it based on no matter what has changed on the record. And then you'll build the criteria in based on decisions as to which values you are going to assign. So I think this is going to be a really good feature for Spring 20. I really like this.